Do you see the beauty in this? Faith does not require perfect words or flawless timing, it requires persistence. The silence you face today may feel like an unanswered prayer. But it is not the end of your story. Just as a seed must endure the darkness of the soil before it breaks forth into light, so too must your faith persevere through the silence before it blossoms into the miraculous. Jesus finally spoke. But his words were not what she might have hoped for. It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. He said harsh words, perhaps, to test the resolve of her faith. And yet, she did not falter. She saw through the surface, recognizing not rejection but an opportunity, a chance to declare her unyielding belief in his mercy. Yes, Lord, she replied. But even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. What humility! What courage! She accepted her position, not as a denial but as a foundation for her faith. She trusted that even the smallest touch of his power, even a crumb, was enough to transform her situation. Beloved, what will you do in the face of silence? Will you turn away, believing the lie that you are forgotten? Or will you press closer, kneeling before the Lord with the same boldness as the Canaanite woman? Let your prayer for financial miracle rise not as a demand, but as a declaration of trust. Believe that his silence is not his absence, but his preparation for something greater than you can imagine. Know this, when the testing of faith comes, it is never to break you but to build you. The silence is not the end. It is the pause before the melody of his answer. A divine interlude where your faith takes root and grows strong. And when the answer comes, it will not only meet your needs but exceed your expectations. Hold on, my child, for the God who hears even the faintest cry will never leave you or forsake you. Humility unlocks the heart of God. There is a key that opens the doors of heaven. A treasure more powerful than strength or status, it is humility. The Canaanite woman showed us this truth when she knelt before Jesus. Not with entitlement, but with a heart full of trust and surrender. In the face of words that could have wounded her pride, she chose not to walk away, but to stay, believing that even the crumbs of his mercy could transform her life. Picture her there, bowed low, her voice steady as she replied to Jesus, "Yes, Lord. But even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." It was not a plea born of defeat, but of deep understanding. She knew that in his kingdom, even the smallest act of grace carries infinite power. Her humility wasn't weakness, it was a quiet strength. A declaration that her hope was in him alone. Have you ever felt like you were asking for crumbs? Like your prayer for financial miracle was too small or insignificant for God to notice? Let me remind you, child, that in his hands, even the smallest blessings are multiplied. The bread he offers is not ordinary, it is divine. Capable of meeting not only your needs, but exceeding them in ways you cannot imagine. Humility is not about thinking less of yourself, it is about thinking more of God. It is the recognition that his ways are higher than ours. That his provision comes not because we deserve it but because he delights in giving to his children. When you approach him with a heart that says, "Lord, I trust you. I believe that even a crumb of your mercy can change my life," you step into a posture that moves his heart. Think about the woman's response. She didn't argue her worth or demand to be seen as equal. She simply acknowledged her need and trusted his goodness. And that beloved, is the essence of faith. It is not about striving to prove yourself but about surrendering to His love and letting Him do what only He can. What would happen if you approached your own prayers with this kind of humility? If, instead of asking for the fullness of the table, you trusted that even the smallest touch of His hand would be enough. When you lay down your pride and open your heart to His will, you create space for miracles. The God who multiplied loaves and fish for thousands, who healed the blind and raised the dead, is the same God who hears your whisper. He does not measure your prayers by their size but by the trust they carry. Today, as you lift your prayer for financial miracle, remember this: it is not about convincing God to act. It is about aligning your heart with His, trusting that He knows what you need, and that He is faithful to provide. Humility is not the end of the journey, it is the beginning of His miracles. So come, kneel before Him, and let your faith unlock the fullness of His grace. The crumbs from His table are not crumbs at all, they are overflowing with the abundance of His love. Faith as the bridge to miracles. There is a sacred truth woven into the fabric of every miracle: faith is the bridge between your need and God's provision. The Canaanite woman's story teaches us that it is not the magnitude of the problem nor the size of the request that moves God's heart, it is the unwavering trust of the one who asks. Her faith, tested and refined, became the key that unlocked the miraculous healing of her daughter. Imagine her standing before Jesus, her heart laid bare, her request seemingly impossible. Yet, with every step of her journey and every word she spoke, her faith grew stronger. Have you ever felt the weight of an impossible situation? Perhaps your prayer for financial miracle feels like asking for a mountain to move, and doubt whispers that it cannot be done. But let me remind you, child, that mountains are no match for the faith placed in the one who created them. Faith is not just belief, it is action. It is the courage to approach God even when the world tells you to stay back. The persistence to keep knocking on the door even when it feels locked. The Canaanite woman could have turned away when Jesus first remained silent, or when His words tested her resolve. Instead, she stayed. Her faith unshaken. Her hope undeterred. Her faith was not just a request, it was a declaration: I know who you are, Lord, and I trust you. What would happen if you approached your own challenges with this kind of faith? What if you lifted your prayers, not as a last resort, but as a first response, believing that God is both able and willing to act on your behalf? Faith is not about the certainty of the outcome, it is about the certainty of the one in whom you trust. When you pray, Lord, I need your help. I need a miracle.